Hello, everyone. Welcome to another iWoman Report. I'm Cathleen Trigg-Jones. We have an excellent show for you lined up today. Former President Donald Trump's first criminal trial is well underway, the so-called hush money trial. We've got all the need-to-know updates. Women's sports continues to be a hot topic. The recent WNBA draft sparks outrage over their salaries. Meanwhile, Nike is also under attack after unveiling its latest U.S. women's Olympic outfits, which some athletes themselves are criticizing over their skimpiness. Plus, we have two fantastic guests joining us today. First, Natasha Alford, the journalist turned author, will be here to talk about her debut book, Negra, a memoir. Then I am so excited to highlight an important non-for-profit organization called Girls Right Now, this W-R-I-T-E Now. Their creative director will be here to talk about the amazing work they are doing to train up the next generation of female writers and leaders. All of this is coming up, but first, disturbing developments in a case involving what police are calling a sex dungeon and a missing Wisconsin college student who disappeared after going on a Tinder date. As I said, what you are about to hear is extremely disturbing, but our hope is that it serves as a wake-up call and a warning about the dangers of online dating. 19-year-old Sade Robinson was last seen with a man she reportedly met on Tinder. That man, 33-year-old Maxwell Anderson, is now charged with murder after some of the young college student's body parts were found scattered throughout the Milwaukee town where she lived. Police believe Anderson killed and then dismembered the teen, who he met on the popular dating app. According to friends, Sade was excited to go out for a seafood dinner with Anderson on April 1st. However, when she did not show up for work the next day, friends and co-workers became suspicious, and they called the police, who went to her home for a welfare check, but they found no sign of Sade. 2 days later, on April 3rd, her car was found burned. Inside of it, the clothes that Sade had been wearing on that Tinder date. Later the same day, investigators found a human leg miles away at Lake Michigan Beach. And in the following days, more body parts surfaced, including a foot and other human remains in separate locations, all matching Sade's DNA. Surveillance footage from the park near the beach where her leg was found showed a car matching her car and a man walking back and forth from that car to the beach. Here's where that story becomes even more disturbing. Upon searching Maxwell Anderson's home, police found blood and uncovered what they are calling a sex dungeon in his basement. Anderson is charged with first-degree intentional homicide, mutilation of a corpse, and arson. Earlier this week, supporters organized a pink out in Sade's honor, filling Anderson's front yard with pink signs, blankets, balloons, flowers, and more to represent the teen. Friends and community members showed up to the home to show their support for Sade's family, even if they did not know Sade personally.
I have a lot of community daughters, and it could have been one of them. She was just happy to go on a date. Who expected it to end like this?
Outraged friends and family hope that this tragic case will serve as a wake-up call to anyone who engages in online dating to take things slow, look for warning signs, and always let someone know your whereabouts. Anderson is due back in court for a preliminary hearing on April 22nd. Meanwhile, Sade, who would have turned 20 next month, dreamed of joining the Air Force after completing college. Her family is begging for anyone with information about this case to please call this number, 414-935-7252. And our hearts go out to this young woman and her family, and we hope that others will certainly take note of the dangers of online dating. And we'll be back with our first guest right after this. Women contribute $20 trillion to the global economy, yet there's not a news and entertainment network focused on the issues that matter most to us until now. Introducing iWoman TV. Become part of the fastest growing global network of women supporting women, featuring new, classic, and original films and TV shows. Studies show when women support women, they are much more successful. Feature your content on the only network created by women, about women, for everyone. Subscribe today at iWoman.tv. Welcome back. Our first guest today is an award-winning journalist, TV host, and media executive. As the Vice President of Digital Content for The Griot and a CNN political analyst, Natasha Alford is passionate about storytelling that inspires and changes people's lives. She just published her first book, a memoir titled Negra, a memoir that she calls part narrative, Part Cultural Analysis, in which she details her upbringing in upstate New York as the daughter of an African-American father and Puerto Rican mother. Natasha, thank you so much for joining us on this iWoman Report.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I want to dive right into this memoir. This is your story. This is your personal story, and it's so timely right now. Can you talk to us a little bit about what inspired you to focus on this particular topic?
Yes, well, we've heard a lot about identity in the news and in culture. Everything from, how certain communities think when they vote, the Black vote or the Latino vote. We've also heard a lot about Afro-Latinos. I think that for some people, that's a new concept, although Black Latinos have always been around. And so I wanted to tell this story and give people sort of education 101 on the Black Latin diaspora, how many of us are connected, all of us who came from Africa, right, and who were spread during the transatlantic slave trade, what it means to have that interconnected history. And then I also wanted to tell a coming of age story. This is what it's like to be a young Black Latina girl growing up in America. I didn't see that book when I was growing up, and Toni Morrison said that you have to write the books that you wish existed. And so that's why I wrote American Negra.
Well, it is incredible, and Toni Morrison is an idol and a mentor of mine. Your story is so unique and inspiring to go from where you came from growing up to end up, and I don't want to tell the story, I want you to tell it, but to end up where you are now. Talk to us about how you did that.
Part of writing this story was really asking myself that, how does a young girl coming from a working class family in one of the poorest cities in America, Syracuse, New York. And so coming from a working class family, how did I go from public schools onto Harvard University, onto Northwestern, and Princeton University, where I am now? And this, I think, is an example of the American dream when it works, right? When things work in your favor, when you have people who are advocating for you. But too many of our young people don't have that. And particularly for young Black girls, Latina girls, those who are like me, who are both, sometimes expectations are low about what we can achieve. And so I wanted to center my experience, but also show the ways in which this story could have not been a happy ending. And so I think the last piece of this story is about imposter syndrome, right? Mm-hmm. Feeling like even though you've gotten yourself into the room, maybe you can't actually do what you dream. And I hope the story shows people that with changing your mindset, with learning to accept who you are and knowing who you are, you move differently in the world, and you know that you belong in the places that you've gotten, you brought yourself to.
You call it, I read that you call it part narrative and part cultural analysis. Talk to us about that.
Well, the cultural analysis piece really is in the history that you learn in this book. The biggest compliment that I've gotten is people who are saying, wow, I'm learning as I'm reading this. I'm feeling things. I'm with you on this journey. But I'm learning things like the fact that African Americans actually migrated to Haiti after the Haitian Revolution. Why don't we ever talk about that history? I mean, these histories are often buried. And this idea of shared history, I don't think that we talk about it enough. We often talk about communities in silos when in fact people are stronger when they work together. America has seen progress when groups from different backgrounds have come together to advocate for justice. So again, this is a timely message for right now. I make some direct connections to what is happening today in politics and in the culture. But really, I think all of us can learn a lot by looking at the past, whether it's your personal past. What are your family roots? Where do your people come from? How did that shape your experience? But also your community's roots, your country's story. I think there are many, many stories that we only are scratching the surface on. And so the hope is that American Negra can help create some new conversations.
What have you learned yourself? You know, when you turn the camera, if you will, or the pen on yourself and you start writing your own story, sometimes you find little surprises or in your memory. What kind of things have you learned about yourself from this process?
Wow. Well, if you write a memoir, be comfortable with facing the ugliest parts of yourself, maybe the moments that you're not so proud of. but also learn to have compassion for yourself. And I think that is what I found through this journey. This young girl, I sometimes just want to hug her and say, it's okay. You know, you're doing enough. I was the prototypical poster child for, overachievement, right? Inner city high school, wanting to be the best, wanting to succeed, wanting to make it out. And with all of my achievements, I still was so hard on myself. I still struggled with confidence. And I want our young people, I want all of us really to learn a self love that is not contingent upon our performance, upon our achievements. It's a self love that is really unconditional. And I learned to forgive myself for mistakes, to love myself through writing this book, but also my own family relationships where I was afraid to talk about certain things or ask my parents certain things. I mean, they survived a lot of abuse when they were younger, and those were hard conversations to have. But I had a new compassion for them by asking them interview questions for this book. A lot of people have asked me about writing a memoir so young. I'm grateful that at 37, I could have this healing process so that whatever is in front of me, whatever life remains, I can move through life in, again, an unburdened way. I just feel so free after writing this book. And I hope that the people who read it, all of my readers, you feel a sense of freedom as well.
Awesome. What's next?
I'm literally here at What's Next. I'm here at Princeton University. I'm getting a Master of Public Policy with a specialty in domestic policy and a certificate in urban policy. And I think that the next phase of my journalism will be really focused on solutions. We've heard a lot about problems over the past, 2 election cycles. We can tell you everything that's wrong, but what do we do to fix it? What places are actually having success in improving the economy, improving education, ending racism, creating community? So I went back to graduate school to ask those questions for myself. And I hope to now, I'm going back into journalism, back to the griot to really tell these stories for election 2024 and beyond, to hopefully inspire some change makers to do something with the policy work that I'm highlighting in my journalism.
Awesome. Wow. Well, we could not be more proud of you, and we will continue to watch you and celebrate you on the sidelines. Just keep soaring, Queen. We've got your back. We're all here. And if you could please come up with a solution to pay equity, we will bow down to you.
Oh, Caitlin Clark and all of our, I'm thinking of Angel Reese. I'm sure they all agree with everything you said just now.
I'm about to dive right into those stories right now. Thank you so much, Natasha, for joining us today on the iWoman Report. Natasha Alford, make sure you pick up her book, American Negra, a memoir.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. Please pick up a copy of Natasha's memoir, American Negra, and check out our full interview on iWoman.tv. When we come back, we've got all the details on Trump's ongoing hush money trial. History is being made and all eyes are on New York this week as former President Donald Trump becomes the first American president to be criminally charged. Jury selection is underway in the case against Donald Trump, who faces charges that he allegedly falsified documents to cover up a sex scandal with porn star Stormy Daniels. Trump is already facing penalization for violating a gag order that had barred him from attacking witnesses. The weekend before the trial began, Trump attacked potential witness Michael Cohen. In a post on Trump's new social media platform, Truth, his post read, "Has disgraced attorney and felon Michael Cohen been prosecuted for lying?" The prosecution asked the judge to hold Trump in contempt and charge a fine of $3,000 for violating his gag order. At Monday's trial, Judge Merchan said that he would let the defense respond and listen to arguments on April 24th.
The whole world is watching this hoax. You got a DA that's out of control. You have a judge that's highly conflicted. The whole thing is a mess, and you have the leading candidate and leading crooked Joe Biden by a lot. He's the one that should be in trial. He's a crook. You got a crooked president. He should be in trial with all the stuff he's done in his family. He should be in trial, but he's the one in charge. His top people are here, working with the DA's office to make sure everything goes right. But it shouldn't go right because they have no case, and that's what this is all about. And it really is a shame. This country is devolving into a third world country between having no borders, having no justice, we have no justice, and having a press that doesn't want to cover the facts. So thank you very much.
Trump faces 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. This is the first of 4 criminal cases he will go on trial for, and likely the only one to occur before the presidential election in November. The Caitlin Clark effect strikes again. The WNBA draft this week saw historic viewership, even surpassing last year's MLB and NHL drafts, with 2.4 million people tuning in to see where these amazing athletes would be beginning their professional careers. It will come as no surprise that Iowa's Caitlin Clark was the #1 draft pick by the Indiana Fever, followed by Stanford's Cameron Brink by the LA Sparks and South Carolina's Camila Cardoso by the Chicago Sky. And of course, fan favorite Angel Reese was picked #7 overall and will also be heading over to the Chicago Sky along with Cardoso. The excitement for these women is felt across the country and beyond, proven by the record-breaking viewership of not only the draft, but also the games themselves. And this is where the excitement begins to turn to frustration. Despite the record-breaking year women's basketball has seen, the salaries of the newest WNBA players are laughable. Caitlin Clark, arguably the face of women's basketball right now, signed a 4-year contract of only $338,000. That comes out to just $76,000 for her rookie year. And I say only, not to sound insulting, but to point out the stark comparison to last year's first-round NBA draft pick salary, which was $55 million for a 4-year contract. These are the top female ballers in the game, and they're barely making above minimum wage. We've got to do better. Fortunately, there is a silver lining, a slight one, to the story, in that these female players are at least finally getting endorsement deals worth millions of dollars. Clark and Reese have both made over $1 million from name and likeness deals, or NIL deals as they're called, this season, with Clark raking in a reported $3.4 million, as she should.
I'm super happy to be here. Thank you, Fever, the Pacers. This is a dream come true. Like, these are the moments you dream of. Obviously, Tamika Catchings is here. Like, that's pretty incredible. Somebody I grew up idolizing.
Another barrier women athletes face is the continued sexualization of their sport. Nike is under fire after unveiling the U.S. track and field team uniforms for the upcoming Olympic Games in Paris. A leotard for the women's uniform features an extremely high-cut bikini line, spurring criticism from the athletes and the fans alike. Former U.S. track and field star Lauren Fleshman said in an Instagram post that the outfits were born out of patriarchal forces. And she pointed out that if this style of uniform was beneficial to peak performance, then the men would be wearing them too. Let's see that. Amidst the backlash, Nike released a statement that the leotard is just one of a range of styles for the Olympians, adding that all designs were produced in partnership with athletes' needs. The criticism follows a recent surge in calling for change in the sexualization of women's uniforms and sports. Speaking of equity and the power of change, I am thrilled to introduce our next guest from Girls Right Now. That's Girls Right, W-R-I-T-E, Now. It's a not-for-profit organization that aims to break down barriers of gender, race, age, and poverty to train the next generation of writers and leaders. Through their mentorship program, mentees learn to use their voices and their stories to shape culture, impact industries, and inspire change. Their creative director of marketing and communications, Chelle Carter-Wilson, is here today to talk more about their mission and how they work to positively impact the lives of young women. Thank you so much, Chelle, for joining us on the iWoman Report today.
Thank you for having me. We're excited to talk.
Super excited to hear everything about Girls Right Now. So let's start from the very beginning. I know this is your 25th anniversary. What is Girls Right Now?
Girls Right Now, is a mentoring organization founded, as you mentioned, 25 years ago, with a very simple idea that girls and gender expansive youth should have access to the same opportunities to understand how to elevate their voices and have access not only to the publishing and the media industry, but any industries that they had not historically had access to. We started with one-to-one 9-month mentoring programs based on the academic calendar and have in the 25 years since our founding expanded our program to be asynchronous, to go from just one-to-one mentoring models to models that include shorter form programming, mentors on demand, mentors for a day, or shorter mentoring cycles that provide programming to mentees, as we call them, as young as 14, high school freshmen, all the way through early career, beginning at 24, 25, and then inviting mentors to join us at age 26. And we have mentors well into their 90s who are still actively engaged with young people in our program.
Wow, in a nutshell, it's pretty impressive. So you said you started about the 9th grade with young women, so 14 years old, 15 years old, and then what exactly are you doing when you say you're mentoring them? Because I'm a huge believer in the power of mentorship. But tell me from the beginning, a young girl applies to the program, and once she gets in, tell me how that process works.
So we work with schools and educators and all sorts of community programs. We send out an application that is very simple. We send out applications in the summertime for both mentees and mentors, as we call them. They applied for both the 9-month kind of academic year programs and then the other programs and tell us what they want to learn. We then match the mentees with the mentors, and the traditional long form journeys is a one-to-one pairing where they're going to work on a number of different tracks, fiction or nonfiction, poetry, screenwriting, zines are other examples of program tracks that we've done.
So at the end of all of this, what happens to these great creative works that the young budding writers are creating?
It depends. Sometimes they are performed. Some of the works are produced as books. Each year, one of our writing programs produces a written anthology. In June this year, we will have the 2024 anthology, and those are collected works that are submitted by mentee-mentor pairs. In fact, in just the next few weeks, we will do a reveal of this year's cover and the title of the 2024 anthology, which is always very exciting for the groups that have contributed to it. And for the first time this year, we will produce 2 books, which we've never done before. There's a 25th anniversary anthology release that is actually conversations of this year's mentees with pieces that have been produced over the preceding 25 years. So for example, some of our young mentees looked back through our archives, found written pieces that somehow resonated with them, and either wrote responses to the pieces or some kind of companion work. So in some cases, there's a piece that resonated with them and they've written some kind of response to that work. We're excited to announce that we've collaborated with musicians who've written musical responses to some of those pieces. We're excited, one, to have 2 books coming out in the same year, but we're also excited that there are a variety of artistic expressions happening in this 25th anniversary.
Incredible. Well, I'm going to put a plug in right now for iWoman to collaborate on some of this. Maybe we can unveil that cover right here on iWoman TV. You'll have to make sure you come back and visit us. Thank you so much for doing this work. We love it. We'd love to find out how iWoman TV can continue to support organizations like Girls Right Now.
We'd love to partner with you. We really would. We're delighted with the invitation.
All right. Well, Chelle Carter-Wilson, thank you so much for joining us on this week's iWoman Report. You all can watch the full interview with Chelle right here on iWoman.tv. When we come back, I'll let you know what important legislation we would be without if it weren't for a woman. There are many everyday items that we would be without if it weren't for an accomplished female inventor. But what about the laws, the bills, and the lifting of restrictions that led to the charge in the fight for gender equality? Title IX was a monumental step forward for women and girls in education and sports. And of course, we have a woman to thank. In 1964, Patsy Mink was the first woman of color to ever be elected to the House of Representatives. As someone who fought for education for herself, education equity was a prominent cause during her time as a congresswoman. So in 1972, she became the chief sponsor of Title IX, a bill that stated no person in the United States shall, based on sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity that is receiving federal financial assistance. This is the legacy of a woman who fought discrimination every step of her journey. If it were not for Patsy Mink and her dedication to education equity, providing the perspectives of a woman of color in an extremely homogeneous environment of thought, who knows how long it would have been before we saw a law come through that would have as much impact on gender equality as Title IX. Thank you, Patsy Mink, for being a true trailblazer. And this brings me to my thought of the day. With the recent WNBA draft, why is no one talking about the elephant in the room? I'm talking about the pressing issue that's been on many of our minds, but because it's the way that it's always been, no one is taking a real stand against the gross pay inequality that female athletes are forced to just grin and bear. Be happy, at least you're getting a contract and some attention now, right? Well, that's just not enough anymore. The enthusiasm and record-breaking viewership during the NCAA women's basketball tournament were historic, with 18.9 million viewers tuning in to watch South Carolina triumph over Iowa. This made it not only the most watched women's basketball game ever, but also the most viewed basketball game, men or women's, since 2019. With such monumental success, one would assume that it would pave the way for financial parity in professional sports. Unfortunately, though, this isn't the case. The glaring pay disparity between men's and women's salaries remains a sore point. While the lowest paid NBA player earns a minimum of $1.1 million, the top picks in the WNBA this year, as we reported earlier, such as Caitlin Clark, Camila Cordoso, and Rickea Jackson, will earn just $76,000 their rookie year. It's a stark contrast that highlights an undeniable inequity in the sports industry. Despite the immense popularity and significant cultural impact of these incredible athletes, the financial recognition is disproportionately low. It's heartening to see some progress, don't get me wrong, with players like Clark and Reese securing significant endorsements, which show their marketability and the potential for women in sports to draw major interest. Yet, as we celebrate these achievements, we must also continue to challenge the structures that maintain this pay inequity. It's unacceptable that the salary structures within the WNBA have not evolved in step with the league's growth and the players' undeniable appeal and performance. We call for a deeper examination and action to address these discrepancies. As we see venues like the T-Mobile Arena expanding their capacity in anticipation of games featuring stars like Clark, it's clear that the audience and the profit potential are there. It's time for the earnings of these stellar athletes to match their contributions to the sport. Let's not settle. Let's strive for the equality that these athletes deserve. We owe it to them and to our daughters and all the other generations of little girls to keep this conversation alive and to push for real, meaningful change. Here at iWoman TV, we will continue to raise our voices until equity is achieved. Pay women what they're worth, period. That is going to do it for this week's iWoman Report. Thank you all for joining us. Everyone, please stay healthy, stay happy, and stay safe.